my name's Justine Ginsberg and I'm your host for Health Matters, a public health education show produced by the Farmington Valley Health District. Today we're going to talk about holiday health. Regardless of what holidays you and your family celebrate, most of us spend more time socialising and eating as the year draws to a close. So, what do we need to think about in terms of being safe in the kitchen, and how can we best support one another during these very, very busy times? Today we're welcoming back a favourite guest to Health Matters, Laurie Brennan, who's the Food Services Coordinator for Farmington Valley Health District, and I'm very proud to announce the Sanitarian of the Year for the state of Connecticut. So welcome, Laurie.
Thank you, Justine.
My pleasure. So, the holidays are a time where there's an awful lot of stuff going on in the kitchen, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And no matter what party you celebrate, whether you're celebrating Hanukkah or Christmas, or whether you're just a Thanksgiving family that celebrate Thanksgiving, we do spend an awful lot of time in the kitchen. And for many people, a beast a little like this is a regular visitor.
Correct. That's right.
So today I thought, let's do something a little bit different, and let's actually have our show in the kitchen, and let's pretend that it's Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas Day, maybe it's Hanukkah, and we are preparing a beast. Now, I can't actually cook a beast without naming it, so we're going to call it Nigel.
Fine.
All right,
Nigel
so
it is.
Nigel is going to be part of the festivities. So what are some of the biggest common issues that we run into with a Nigel when we buy it and we store it?
Well, a couple things. First of all, you're going to have to decide whether you want to purchase a fresh turkey or a frozen turkey.
Oh.
The one thing when you decide that is how long in advance of the holiday are you purchasing it. If you're purchasing a frozen turkey, it generally takes about 24 hours for every 5 pounds of bird for defrosting.
Oh, okay, hang on, back up a little bit.
Sure.
So how big is your average bird?
Well, this is about a 13-pound bird.
Okay.
A bird. A lot of times we'll see birds in the supermarkets up to 20, 22 pounds.
So that could be like 4 days.
It could be 4 days.
Wow.
So that's the first thing you have to think about and plan when you're doing your shopping. How much time do you have before the holiday? So you're talking a 20-pound bird is going to take you 4, maybe 5 days.
Wow, so the Ginsberg household not being terribly organised is not going to be something we're going to be able to do if we're using a frozen bird.
That's correct. And there are fresh turkeys, and those can safely be purchased within 1 or 2 days of your holiday.
So then if you've got one frozen bird and you suddenly have a large group of people who are joining you, you need to buy a fresh bird, not another frozen.
Probably so.
Okay.
Yes. Now, the other thing you need to be aware of is when you're purchasing your turkey, whether it's frozen and or fresh, it starts at the shopping cart. You want to make sure that you're storing the bird in the cart, separate from any of your ready-to-eat foods, your fruits and vegetables, any other produce, any of your packaged, what we call ready-to-eat foods. You want to assume that this, even in the package, is contaminated. There may be some pathogens even on the exterior of the packaging.
Okay, so again, this creates a change in perhaps the way I do my shopping, and I'm sure most people at home. I often, when I'm buying my turkey, it's the first thing I put in my cart, and then I zap past the produce section and I load in my lettuces, etc.
Right.
I'm not doing this the right way, am I?
Probably a good idea maybe to store it on the bottom of the cart, on the bottom rack, so it's completely separate, and if it is in fact dripping or has condensation, it's not dripping onto other products.
Wow, or maybe even a separate trip for the bird.
Absolutely, that's a great
one
idea.
and done for the bird, and then you go back another day.
And the other thing is, a lot of times now at the meat aisles, they do have plastic bags available you can slip the product into, and or sometimes they'll even have little stations or a kiosk of hand wipes, wet, moist wipes, so you can wipe your hands after touching the packaging or rummaging through the selection of turkeys.
Okay, so I'm going to play the naive shopper here. Why, if this is all encased in its plastic packaging and its lovely net, what is the pathogen? What am I going to be exposed to?
Well, you know, there may be a number of different pathogens.
Sure.
The one we most commonly think of associated with poultry is Salmonella. However, you know, they have actually done studies, food safety groups have actually done studies where they've purchased randomly turkeys and or chickens and they've tested them. And they find that despite our having the safest food production in the world, over half of those turkeys or chickens are contaminated with one or multiple types of bacteria.
Wow.
So that's something you want to keep in mind when you're purchasing it, storing it, putting it in the car, taking it home, and going through the whole preparation process.
Wow. So I suppose really a point for folks at home, it's probably not just your Thanksgiving or Christmas turkey, it's every time you buy poultry or meat. You often get the drippage at the bottom and you kind of just wipe it on your pants.
That's right.
Not such a good idea. Okay, so there's a lesson learned on Health Matters. All of that meat that you're buying really does you need to make a conscious decision about how you're storing that in the cart.
There is that potential that it is contaminated, that's right.
Okay, so Nigel and I have met up, we've gone through the scanner, we've come home.
Okay.
He's a 13-pound turkey, so it's going to take me 4 days to defrost him. 13
pounds, probably 2 to 3 days. 4 pounds probably 4 days probably for a 20-pound bird.
Okay, so for we'll say 3 days. So where am I putting Nigel?
Okay, so once you're home, you want to practice the same food safety. You want to store it in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Separate from other items so things aren't coming in contact with it, and preferably on the lowest shelf. So again, if it should drip or there's condensation, it's dripping down onto the bottom of the refrigerator as opposed to other packages of foods.
So what do you do in your traditional refrigerator where you've got the bottom shelf and then underneath that are the vegetable keepers?
Yeah, that is a problem. So you just want to be aware. Maybe what you do is, you take the turkey out of its original package, and we'll talk a little bit more about handling when you're doing that.
Sure.
Put it into a fresh package. So again, it doesn't have that contamination potentially that was on the outer wrapping when you purchased it.
All right.
You just, the way refrigerators are set up now, oftentimes, the vegetable crispers are below, or your cold cuts or whatnot, so it does get challenging.
Okay.
But as much as possible, you want to keep it segregated as much as you are able.
Okay, so again, I think most households in the US are like the Ginsburg household. Come Thanksgiving or Christmas, I have an overflow of things I need to store in a refrigerator. So now I'm, a day before Thanksgiving, and I'm doing my, some of my other preps, and Nigel's still sitting down there defrosting and taking up the whole bottom shelf. He's close to being done. Can I not, if it's snowing, can I not just put him outside in the snow?
Well, you could do that. I mean, the risk with doing that is, and we have people sometimes ask us that, and particularly during power outages, is it okay to put
bury him
in snow, out in our garage? You have to make sure that the temperature there is even and there's not sun coming in through a window, there's warm spots. So you do have to be, somewhat careful with the spot that you choose.
Okay.
The bottom line is you always really, until that bird is cooked, you really want that bird stored at 41 degrees or less. So that's your objective, to keep it cold until it goes into the oven.
So then maybe the sacrifice should be the sodas and the juices that can go out into the snow.
That's right.
And Nigel should stay in the fridge.
You want to make proper choices. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so we've defrosted Nigel. He's sat beautifully in the bottom of the refrigerator. He hasn't been dripping on things.
Right.
And now the time has come. Okay. How long is Nigel going to take to cook?
Well, it depends, again, on the weight. And if you go to our website, we're going to have some
absolutely, these will be uploaded this week, so they'll be ready to go.
We'll have some great tips on roasting times, depending on whether or not the bird is stuffed, not stuffed.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the Ginsburg household is a stuffing household.
Okay.
So does that change the cooking time?
It does, because you're taking that empty cavity through which heat can disperse from the inside out through that bird when it's roasting.
Okay.
Now you're stuffing it. So you're putting a barrier in there, if you will, and it's very dense.
Okay.
So it will add to your cooking time, most assuredly. And the other thing you need to be careful of is, this turkey, for instance, has a pop-up timer, which in general are pretty reliable.
Okay.
However, you want to be using a thermometer on your own to take temperatures. When you're doing that, you also want to make sure you're taking a temperature of the stuffing, because that's been in the cavity of the bird, so that too has to be cooked to the proper temperature.
All right, so for the folks at home, it would be no fun if we were standing in a kitchen with a raw Nigel if we didn't actually do something with him. So I am going to be the brave one.
Very good.
So in a pan we prepared earlier, Nigel is ready to go, so I'm going to take him off my chopping board.
Okay.
And I'm going to place him onto my rack, put him up here so the viewers at home can see. Now, there's a little plastic thing here.
That's right.
Can that stay?
That's right. You want to always refer to the manufacturer's instructions.
Okay.
Sometimes they're plastic and sometimes they're metal. Now, certainly something that's metal can stay on the bird as it's being roasted, and the purpose for that is simply to hold the bird together in its packaging when you're buying it.
Okay, so I have a feeling this is plastic because that's what it feels like.
Very good. And the other thing viewers want to be aware of is there is a little goodie bag inside, if you will, filled with giblets and whatnot. You always want to remove that.
And there's also Nigel's neck.
The neck as well.
Okay.
That's right.
So that's good for gravy, I believe.
That would be used for a nice giblet gravy, but yes, you don't certainly want to cook the turkey with that in there.
Okay, but I could put it into the side of the pan.
Of course you can. Sure.
Okay, so now I have my cavity all ready to go, and I just add my stuffing.
Yep. And what you want to do when you're stuffing a bird is, as much as possible, you want to pack it loosely. Because
so you don't want to...
Yeah, you don't want to put it in so it's so solid, rock hard. You want to allow a little airspace for that temperature to be rising in there along with the rest of the bird.
And so does the same apply, sometimes if I don't add stuffing, I'll stuff the cavity with oranges and lemons and sort of citrusy things.
Right.
The same kind of concept?
It does.
Loosely packed?
Loosely packed.
Okay.
That's right.
So Nigel has been stuffed, and I've put my whatever glaze I might want to put over the top of him.
Right.
Can I just put him straight in the oven now?
You can put him in the oven. Again, always follow the specifications. Usually it's best to cook a turkey for a longer period of time at a lower temperature.
Okay.
And a couple other things we want to chat about too is that when you first get into the kitchen, of course, you want to practice good hand washing.
This is true. So for the folks at home, I have Laurie as a witness. I washed my hands thoroughly before I came onto the set.
Yes.
So I believe that we can also use a thermometer. Now this gets me every time. Do I put it in now? Do I wait till he's in the oven?
There are two types of thermometers. One is you can put in a thermometer that is meant to be in the product as it's being cooked. That's a specific thermometer. You can go to any one of your department stores or dollar stores and find those. The other type of thermometer is something that we've talked about before on Health Matters, and that is one of any number of models of digital probe thermometers. Excuse me. This is one that you'll typically find, again, dollar store or hardware store, whatnot. Has a very nice thin probe at the tip. Has a very easy on-off button. Takes a little battery, and you're simply going to...
So where am I going to put it?
Okay. So as you're cooking the turkey,
so the folks at home.
Again, this is going to take several hours to cook. And again, you want to have your packaging available to you. There's even hotlines, like I think Butterball has a hotline you can call if you're, a little unsure. And again, we'll have this on our website. But you're going to use your thermometer, and you're going to put it in a couple of different spots. One is you're going to try and put it in,
put it in the front part.
In the thickest part of the bird, because that is going to take the longest to heat up to temperature.
That makes sense.
You're looking for a final cooking temperature of 165 degrees minimum. So you're going to insert it into the bird. It's simply going to read a temperature here, and you can have a pretty decent idea if you are done and or whether or not it needs longer. That's one spot. The other spot is for stuffed turkey. You do want to also insert it into the stuffing itself.
And does that need to be 165 at least?
All parts of the bird, including the stuffing, also have to be 165. That's correct.
So here's a question for the folks for you from the folks at home. So, my bird's looking really golden on the outside, and it's not quite the amount of time that I thought it was in. I grab my thermometer and I kind of prick it into the top part, and it comes out at 170, and we think, great, we're ready to go. Could that be misleading if I'm putting it in the wrong spot?
It can be. And again, you want to go into that thickest part. Don't be afraid to take several temperatures in different spots of the turkey. It can be misleading. An old way of thinking is that when the juices run clear, it's finished, it's done. Not necessarily the case. So you don't want to rely on sight, time alone. You want to use the food thermometer to really ensure you're getting to that proper temperature. And the reason 165 is so important is that some of that bacteria that we've talked about before, that will be killed at 165.
Okay, so the other question about the thermometer before we move on to other exciting things about Thanksgiving and holidays is how far do I push the thermometer in? So do I just put the tip in? Do I push it all the way until it hits bone? At what point do I stop?
It depends, again, on the thermometer. This style actually reads at the very, very tip. However, you really do want to get into the meatiest part of that turkey. You don't only want to insert it a 1/4 inch, you want to go really in quite far.
So we're going for gold.
You really are.
Okay.
You really are.
So Nigel is ready to go. Nigel is going into the oven.
Yes.
And we get to move on because
Yes.
now
Yes.
I have people coming.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with my salads.
Okay. So, oops, before you do that,
Okay.
you can see that we have a lot of turkey juice.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that this is the time when you've just worked with a raw turkey, so you want to
Okay.
make sure you would wash your hands.
Okay, so see viewers, I jumped a little bit ahead
We
there.
don't have a sink here, but you would wash your hands.
Okay.
And any of the items that you've been working with, counters, utensils, cutting boards, towels,
Okay.
all those now have that raw turkey juice on them. They have to either be replaced and or sanitized. So
Excellent.
one tip is, for instance, I know everyone at home has got the cloth towel hanging off the refrigerator handle, the oven handle.
Yep.
It's a good idea probably when you're prepping your turkey just to put it aside.
Okay, so
and
we're
rely,
throwing that away.
Rely on
Paper towels?
disposable single-use paper towels.
Okay.
So, for instance, now this cutting board has that raw juices on. You would not want to use it for cutting of any bread, any pies, any vegetables, because you're going to what we call cross-contaminate.
What about my roast potato, which I'm going to cook?
You are going to cook that, but you know, it's a better practice to
Okay.
just get in the habit all the time, and not
Okay.
just Thanksgiving, of when working with anything raw, whether it be poultry, fish, beef, eggs, any of those
Okay.
products, to switch out what you've been using and or wash them.
Okay, so we're going to pretend that we have put that into the sink. What do I do with the countertop?
Okay.
Do I just wipe with my paper towel?
Okay, couple things. That's great to get up the actual
Okay.
food matter. However, it's still not enough to remove any potential pathogens on the surface. So
Okay.
a couple things you can do. One is you can mix up your own sanitizer using a little bit of bleach.
Okay.
This is simply a little spray bottle from the dollar store. It has about 1/4 teaspoon of regular household bleach filled with warm water, and then you would spritz and spray, wipe it up with clean paper towels.
Okay.
That's going to kill any of those potential pathogens on that surface.
So I'm learning as we go. Now, in the Ginsberg house, when we do cleanup, we tend to talk about what's happening in the world. So while we're here on Health Matters today, before, of course, we check to see 3 hours into the future that Nigel's ready,
Right.
Holidays can be a really stressful time for people. And I know that in our household, often we have family members that come to visit that don't visit regularly. There's that stress of where's everyone going to sleep, how are we going to handle Uncle Fred, who can be a little cantankerous, particularly difficult during election times where there's differing political opinions.
Right.
I think it's important for folks to remember at home that, holidays can have a whole lot of stresses. It's not just kind of the closeout of the year where often at work we're finishing projects, etc. We've got kids who are going on holidays. We've now got to do the shopping. We've got to worry about getting Nigel home safely and then going back. And,
That's right.
How do we deal with those stresses? What are some of the things we do for self-care? And people at home know a lot about us on Health Matters. We talk a lot about mental health and mental well-being. So during the holidays, it's really important that you do remember that, there are times that you're going to feel a little stressed and you're going to feel a little overwhelmed. So, taking a little bit of time to yourself, reading that book, having a nice cup of hot cocoa, putting your feet up, giving yourself a break from maybe going to every holiday party. Maybe recognising that you can't be everything to everybody. And maybe if we don't get that batch of homemade cookies made for the office, it still doesn't mean we don't care about
It's
people.
okay.
It's actually
It's
okay.
okay.
We've got to be good at forgiving ourselves. And I think the other thing too that we need to remember is that sometimes people don't have somewhere to be at the holidays. While we're busy creating festivities in our own homes, we sometimes forget that not everybody's doing that.
Yes.
And I know in your household you're very good at opening the doors for another person to come and putting an extra chair at the end of the table. But I think for all folks, really looking around your communities and thinking about who's alone and using it as an opportunity to invite a neighbour who might be recently widowed or a recent widower, or think of our veterans out there in our communities, often feeling very isolated, too embarrassed to ask. Maybe we should really take that first step up and ask them to join us.
Yes. Yes. In the spirit of the holiday.
So,
that's a nice
as
thing
we're
to do.
coming, believe it or not, we have 5 minutes left.
Oh my goodness.
You and I do this a lot.
There's so much we didn't talk about.
Okay, so Nigel's done.
Yes.
But I'm juggling things in the oven. What do I do? What stays hot? What doesn't stay hot?
Okay. Well, what they usually say is that you want that bird to rest anyway. So what you want to do is when it's reached your 165, take it out of the oven. Maybe you tent it with some aluminum foil. You set it off to the side. And it can rest there for a little bit of time while you're maybe doing some of your last minute things.
Crisping up those potatoes, etc.
Absolutely. Mashing potatoes, mashing turnips,
All the trimmings.
That's right.
So fast forward, we've eaten Nigel. It's been a success. He was at the right temperature. We've had our vegetables and our pies. Now it's time to pack stuff up.
Right.
What do I need to think about? How long has things been out? How do I pack it up? And how do I get it out of here?
It's so tempting. After the meal is done, you're tired. You've put on a big meal, the football game's on, there's nothing you want to do but sit down. But you really want to get your leftovers away as quickly as possible. Okay. And as a general rule, you want to get everything put away, back in the refrigerator in 2 hours or less.
Okay.
So that really does allow for plenty of time. The key to keep in mind is that if you have large volume of leftovers left, if you put away a large turkey carcass with a lot of meat still on it and it is still warm, it will take hours to cool down from that hot temperature to 41 or less, that cold temperature.
So breaking it up into smaller containers.
Breaking it up is a good idea.
Okay.
Same thing with any of your other hot vegetables and or hot baked potatoes or sweet potatoes.
Okay.
Those are considered hazardous once they're cooked. So those too have to be put away in a relatively short period of time. Sending leftovers with your guests, nice idea. Keep them in the refrigerator until they're just about ready to leave.
Okay.
If they're going to make any stops on the way home, maybe some small ice packs you can invest in before the holiday.
Okay.
Send them home with little sealed Ziploc bags filled with ice cubes if they have a long way to travel.
And so I don't know about in the Brennan household, but I know in the Ginsburg household, my all-time favorite thing the next day is to have turkey and stuffing sandwich with gravy and cranberry sauce. Do I need to what do I have to heat that turkey up to be safe?
Again, 165.
165,
which is the general rule, not just for poultry in its initial cooking, but for any leftovers. They should be reheated to a 165 temperature.
So really making sure that we get it up to 165.
Right.
And I suppose we've only probably got about 2 more minutes left, but I suppose the viewers at home have seen these coloured boards. Can you take us through why they're important?
Yes.
It's not just my need to be colour coordinated.
No. The reason, and these are quite useful, we see these in restaurants, but you can also get them at the dollar stores, at Ocean State Job Lot. And the purpose of them is for just what you were doing. You were preparing poultry, for instance, on a yellow cutting board. Then let's say it's time to switch over to work with some vegetables. Produce, you remove the yellow board, now you use the green board. So
well, that's intuitive, I like that.
These are great for people who may not be thinking and just without being aware use the same board for different food types, cooked and not cooked and raw and different food groups. So this, by making that association that green is for produce, that forces you to mentally kind of switch out that board and get a fresh, clean one.
Okay, so my green would be for produce.
Yep.
This isn't for tomatoes, is it?
No. Usually the red is for beef products.
Okay.
And depending on the sets that you get, blue may be for fish.
Okay.
We have some restaurants that use white for fish.
Okay.
But in general, the important ones probably to remember are your green is for produce.
Okay.
It's very, very important to make sure that that's prepared separately and contamination-free from your poultry, your fish, your beef, eggs, those types of products.
Because as I've learnt, if it's not heated up to 165, we haven't killed the pathogens, and I tell you, you're not going to be frying your salad. So, Laurie, as always, thank you for coming to Health Matters.
You.
I think we're going to have you back again. Maybe we can make cookies for our granddaughter.
That'll be great. Thank you.
So, as we discovered today, there is more likely to be food preparation during the holiday time, and there's certainly more to holidays than just buying the turkey. Food safety is important to our health and that to our guests as well, observing the correct cooling and cooking temperatures, as well as making sure that our food preparation is well thought out, leaving time to safely thaw, cook and store our menu items. We also need to remember that holidays can be stressful, emotionally charged, and for some people a lonely time. Please make sure that you make some space for kindness and tolerance, and of course add that extra chair to your table for those that are in need. For more information about anything that we talked about today, particularly our food safety and our turkey cooking times, you can always find us at our Farmington Valley Health District website, www.fvhd.org, or of course on our Facebook page, Farmington Valley Health District. So thank you for watching, and until next time, remember, your greatest wealth is your health, and happy holidays.